All right, hello guys. So before we get into today's episode, I just want to let you know that I'm currently enrolling for my signature program, the Online Summit Program. Now, specifically for this week, I'm looking for no more than 10 hikers who want to get strong and pain-free so they can conquer every adventure. Now, if that sounds like you and you want to learn a little bit more about this program and see if it may be a good fit for you and your situation, please shoot me an email to rowan@summitstrength.com.au. That's ROWAN with the words "I'm interested." From there, we can find a bit of a time to chat, we can talk through it all and see if it might be a good fit for you. So if you want to find out more, shoot me an email, rowan@summitstrength.com.au, and we can go from there. So that's enough for that. Let's get into today's episode. Hey, my name is Rowan Smith, and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast, which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare, and conquer your upcoming hike, trek, or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude, and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable, and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for. Let's get into today's episode. Okay, hello guys. Today we are going through a little bit of a training for hiking checklist. And these are a number of things that I think personally should be incorporated into almost every single hiking training program. And I think they should be part of your week or at least part of your month. And I think anyone who is looking to try to improve their performance on the trail, improve their fitness, improve their comfort, improve their capabilities, or whatever you want to do, I do think every single one of these should be a part of your training. So the intention of today's episode is you can look at your own training, you can look at this checklist and be like, am I doing all these things? Maybe not. If you are, fantastic, keep it rolling. If you're not, maybe you'll know something else. You might just slip on into your week to just keep things moving forward. So I've got, 6, 9, 10 things on this checklist that I'm going to be talking you through. Pretty straightforward. I've talked about them all in isolation on this podcast before, but here it all is together. Number 1 on your checklist is every single hiker in their training should be doing some type of strength development. Pretty simple. You know I love it. You know I talk about it, but I do think everyone should be doing it. Now, what I'm talking about in strength development is higher resistance strength training. So it doesn't have to be doing crazy heavy squats or crazy heavy deadlifts, but doing something that is moderately challenging. So whether you're loading up with dumbbells, barbells, pack, or just doing a relatively difficult body weight exercise, I think that should be part of every single hiker's week. Now, how would you define this if you're looking at repetitions? Maybe doing something that's 8 repetitions or less. So you're doing an exercise where, you can't really do more than 9 or 10 repetitions, but you finish it at 8. So what I mean by that, I know that wasn't super clear, but you choose a weight, which you could probably do for 9 or 10 repetitions if you went to your absolute limit, but you only do 8. Or you choose a weight where you could, go at the absolute limit to about 8, and only do 6, or whatever it may be. But something that is relatively strenuous, relatively challenging, something that is going to give a little bit of challenge on that, because it is very, very beneficial. So that's number 1, strength training. Number 2 is endurance development. Now, endurance, specifically muscular endurance, is the ability of the muscles produce force again and again and again and again. And as a hiker, we know this is pretty relevant. So this can either be developed in a few different ways as a hiker. It can be developed through higher repetition strength stuff. It can be developed through, things like loaded hill walking, stair walking, sled pushing, or whatever it may be, or whatever it is where your body is producing force again and again and again and again under a reasonable amount of load. And I think that should be part of every single hiker's week in one way, shape, form, or another. Number 3, what I think every single hiker should be doing, again in one way, shape, form, or another, is some type of balance work. So admittedly, yes, some hikers have better balance, some hikers have worse balance, but I think everyone should be doing some type of balance work in their week, because obviously there's certain sections of our hiking that is pretty relevant. Whether it's river crossings, whether it's unstable terrain, whether it's slippery stuff or whatever it may be, but balance work pretty simple. Number 4 on this checklist is doing some type of stability training. Now, stability, balance, strength, very interchangeable, I know. But when I'm talking about stability here, I'm talking about sort of smaller exercises which can help stabilize some of the smaller areas in the body which does struggle with hiking sometimes. So what I'm talking about here is, developing ankle stability. So direct ankle, exercises are going to help stabilize that area. I'm talking about hip stability. So exercises directly will help stabilize that area. I'm talking about foot stability. So exercise will directly help stabilize that area. And those little areas, which we know as hikers, will often, get a bit of a battering, and developing stability in those particular areas. Number 5 on the checklist is doing some type of mobility work. So increasing the range of motion around, your joints. So ankles, hips, mid-back, typical areas that many hikers, I should say, probably will benefit from a bit of mobility work. Often those areas will get pretty tight. Admittedly, some people are hypermobile or be pretty flexible. They don't really need this. But for the majority of hikers there, they'll probably get a little bit of benefit out of that. The next thing on the list, core development. So core, and when we're talking about core here, I'm specifically talking about the abdominals or the midsection or the torso, pretty important for a whole bunch of different reasons. And fitting in a little bit of development, a little bit of strengthening in this area into your week, very, very good thing. Next thing on the checklist is doing some type of lower intensity cardio. So what I mean by this is cardio where you can sustain for, continuous periods that don't really get you too huffed and puffed. It doesn't really get you super out of breath. It doesn't really make you struggle. But something you can just go for long periods, but just keep on going. Very, very important. And the next thing I think every single hiker should be incorporating is some type of higher intensity cardio. And I know I often advocate this isn't something you should put all your focus into, but getting some exposure to something that does get you a little bit out of breath in your week, does get you a little bit pushed towards that, is a good thing. Doesn't have to be a huge amount, but getting a little bit of exposure can be very, very, very beneficial. And then the final thing that I think every single hiker should be exposed to, or should have in their training week, I should say, is hiking specific exposure. What I mean by this is, just getting exposure to certain elements of the trail in your week. So it might involve you getting out on the trail. It might involve you doing some stairs. It might involve you walking on a bit of off-road or whatever it may be. But getting some exposure to that, I think, is very, very beneficial. Now, you might be listening to this and be like, Rowan, okay, yeah, awesome. This sounds good, but you've just listed off 10 things there. Like, how the heck am I supposed to fit that in my week? I only have so many hours in the day. I have a busy job. I have a young family, whatever it may be. Like, be realistic. We can't dedicate our lives to fitting all that in. And that's absolutely fair enough. And I would never ask someone to do all of those things individually. I would never ask people to sort of put all these different sessions to do each of those by themselves. But if you approach this in a certain way, and if you approach this in have a little bit more thought behind it, a lot of these things do carry over and cross over into each other. So, for example, strength, endurance, balance, stability, mobility, core development. That's 6 things there. But in all honesty, you can fit all of that in to one 60 or 45-minute strength session, or 2 60 or 45-minute strength sessions. And you can fit all of that in. You can do a little bit of heavier strength training. You can do a little bit of higher rep strength training. You can do some balance work maybe in your warm-ups. You can do some stability maybe in your rest periods. Maybe a bit of mobility and core development in your rest periods too. If you structure out a workout in a particular way, you can fit all of that in one workout. Easy enough, that's 6 ticked off. Lower intensity cardio. This might be a case of, if you're hiking once a week, boom, done. If you're not hiking once a week, maybe it's doing loaded pack walking, maybe it's doing swimming, maybe it's doing whatever. But that's an easier enough session to fit in. Higher intensity cardio. You can do a whole session of this by itself. It might be intervals on a bike. It might be doing stairs or whatever it may be. Or you can do this, incorporate this into other sessions. You might do 10 minutes of higher intensity cardio at the end of your strength session if you've got time for that. You might do little tiny periods of higher intensity cardio as part of your lower intensity cardio. So, for example, you might do a 60-minute walk and then do little periods of really quick walking in amongst that 60 minutes. And that still counts. You're still getting exposure. And that's easy enough to do. Lots of different ways you can fit this in. And then the hiking specific exposure, again, you can do this as hiking and that'll cover as your lower intensity cardio, or you can fit this into other areas. You could do it, as loaded pack walking, which will cross as your lower intensity cardio. You could do stair or hill climbing, which would fit into the higher intensity cardio. And there's a whole bunch of different ways of going about this. And if you're pretty smart, pretty structured, and really going with some focus, you can fit each of those 10 things in very, very simply into a week, into 3 sessions a week. Very, very doable. Into 2 sessions a week if you really want to have a stretch. But either way, it's very easy with the right structure to fit all this in. And my personal opinion, if you're ticking off all these bits and pieces, and if you're fitting that into your week consecutively, or at least fitting into your month consistently, this is where the magic happens. All of these things come together on the trail. All of these things play their role in certain situations when it comes to your performance, your comfort, your capabilities, and all of that. And all of these things are incredibly, incredibly beneficial. So if you are missing any of these things in your week, I would probably advocate maybe see where you can slip it in. Maybe see where you can add it into a strength session. Maybe see where you can add it into another, training session in the week. And it may be the difference that you need. Now, if you listen to this and you're like, you know what, Ron, this sounds good to me. I could see myself fitting all those things in. And it sounds good to me doing all of that in 3 or 4 sessions in a week. That sounds pretty doable to me. And I wouldn't mind learning a little bit more about this. And I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of help with this. If that's you, I have something for you. Now, if you haven't heard already, which I'm sure you have, this week I'm doing a promotion around my signature program, which is the Online Summit program. Now, specifically, I'm looking for no more than 10 hikers who want to get strong and pain-free so they can conquer every adventure. As part of the training, we incorporate all of these things into whatever time frame, whatever schedule fits into your life, and we make sure we're ticking off all of these boxes to get you in the best possible position for your hiking. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more about this, if you want to learn if this might be a good fit for you, your situation, and your goals, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Come and find me. Shoot me an email at rowan@summitstrength.com.au, ROWAN. Shoot me an email there just with the words, I'm interested. From there, we can organize a bit of a chat and we can really dive in and just see if this is going to be a good fit for you. Because, in my personal opinion, I know it is a little bit biased, but I personally believe this particular program, this particular approach is the most effective, time efficient, and honestly the most tailored approach for hikers in the entire world. And I want you to be a part of it. So if you want to find out more, shoot me an email, rowan@summitstrength.com.au. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you got a little bit out of it, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.